We're waiting.
All right, we are live today. We are just waiting for Benty Hansen to jump on. We're a few minutes early, so if you feel like tuning in, having a listen to what Benty has to say, grab yourself a cup of tea, just relax. We're going to start in a few minutes' time. We got Trumpy in the background with his white hat on. We're a few minutes early, so just take a...
Are we back to front? No.
No, we're not back to front. Just, yeah, here she is. She's onto it. We're on time today, aren't we?
We're ahead of time. We're doing well.
Here she
Here
comes.
comes the beautiful Benty Hansen.
Lynn.
We can hear her, but we cannot see her. I'll ask her to start her video.
Okay, so what do I do? Let me just have a look.
Video.
Hang on, let me find out what I've got to do. I need the start my video. Yeah, okay,
Yep.
I'll do that.
There we go. Yay.
Okay, I've just got to put my phone. Can you see me? I can't even see myself here.
We can see you.
Okay, let me just get it so that it doesn't fall over. I'm too lazy to get my computer out.
It's all right.
If it works, it works.
Yeah, how are you both?
We are well. How are you, Benty? It's lovely to see you again. You're back by popular demand.
Really?
Yeah, of course. Everyone loved you.
Saying that?
No, of course not.
We've got so much to talk to, and I know you've already had a busy morning.
That's okay. It's all good.
Yeah. Have we gone live yet?
We're
Yes.
live.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I got it all. I got it all organized earlier. I know what I'm doing now, Benty, so I kind of get it organized beforehand.
She's too quick for us, Benty.
No, I think that's just the practice makes perfect.
I do my best.
And that's how it's meant to be.
And how are you today?
Everything
How
is
are you?
really... Sorry?
Yeah, no, how are you?
I'm good. Life is good. Life is magical. But I know it's not that way for many people. Yeah.
Not all the time anyway, is it? We go in and out of our magical moments, don't we?
Well, we do. And I think a lot of that is due to all the programming and the brainwashing that we've been subjected to, you know, over from the time that we're young until we get a lot older. I've got some information I'd like to share, you know, with your, you know, listeners and that at some stage that I feel is really important for people to understand.
Well, how about we start with that then?
We start with it. Okay, look, it's going to take me a little while to explain it all, but it's really important. And I've got the message yesterday morning as I was doing my power walk that I needed to raise this. I'm going, aye. And for those of your, you know, of your audience who don't know me really and don't, you know, aren't sure of where I come from, I've kept a very low profile for the last 20 to 30 years, but I also lived in the States for, you know, over a decade. So a lot of my work was done there and not in Australia. So, and I was always very fortunate that I was under the radar, which is really important if you know what the deep state and the evil ones can get up to. It's really important to stay under the radar and to just do what you need to do. Because once you draw attention to yourself, the consequences can be pretty drastic. Okay, you know, either you get caught up in it and your ego comes into it, whereas I like to work very quietly. I've got this very clear message, and I'm going to have to shift and change in the story to explain a few things. You know, at the moment, we're in a war, and I think you'd both agree with me on that. It's a war of good versus evil. And I remember doing some channeling before 2012, where the information came through that the next war would be won for the mind. And that was way, way back that information came in. And so, you know, a lot of us have had to unlearn a lot of stuff that we've learned along the way. And yet, despite that, we're living in a soup of energy that's filled with fear. And I think you'd both agree with me on that. Okay. There are changes going on behind the scenes, as you're both well aware. If you're really energy sensitive, you can feel it. And it just feels so close to me right now. I can feel it. It's so close. Yet we all have to do some work, every one of us. It's not just the few who get up front and who lead the marches and who make the most noise that have to do the work. One of the things that is really important is for us all to move beyond the fear and to live in a space of joy, harmony, love, compassion, all of those things, because those high frequency energies are what the deep state, the Illuminati, the elite, the Freemasons, whatever you want to call them, those high frequency energies are the ones that they fear. Well, you know, and as a culture, particularly in the last 12 months, and I'm sure you would agree with me on this, we've become so used to our media, to our governments, to the people that we elected, falsely in most instances, I'd say, to represent us. They've been telling us what to do, how to do it, when to do it, what to think, what to believe. And it's set up this dynamic of fear from within. And it's easy for people like us to say, let go of the fear, just let go of it. You don't need it. However, it's not that easy when it sits there. As you know, it's a subconscious response that consciously most people aren't even aware that they're holding on to. So I'm going to go back close on 25, 30 years now, and I came up with a very short phrase, which at the time I didn't really understand the significance of it. But I would say to myself, I release with love all that no longer serves my highest good. And the phrase are the words, my highest good. So I used to say, I release with love all that no longer serves my highest good. And I was feeling fine every time I said it. And within a few days, I'd feel like crap. All these old emotions would come up, anger, grief, rage, you name it. All of these subconscious resistances and fears would surface. And I'd think, what have I done? Why do I feel like hell? And I'd go, oh, I created this. And the little voice inside my head would say, yes, you asked and you receive. Okay. So in all of my work with clients over the years and working on myself, because I really believe that we are all works in progress. You'd agree with me, wouldn't you, on that? You know, you get your highs and then you get your lows and then you get your highs and then there's another low. And what that's doing is that we're going through a process of shedding in a healthy way all the old cellular memory, energy memory from all times. And when we say the words, use the words, the highest good, we're actually doing something very powerful. So when I was doing my own work on myself and also working with clients, and we're doing earth work, because I've been doing earth work for years and years, I would come back to this phrase, for the highest good of the planet. Now, and I've been doing this very consistently, and it's only just in the last 12 months I've understood why I was given those words. I knew I had to say them, and I can't explain why or how I knew, but I knew I had to say them. And I heard someone give a very succinct explanation for it. As you know, everything in the universe, the multiverse, is made up of energy. The ether is all energy. And you can use that energy for good or bad. You know, it has a vibration, it has a frequency, and depending on your intention, you know, you can manifest whatever you consciously or unconsciously choose to manifest. So I'll just call them the DS, the deep state. The DS know this very, very powerfully. And it was at the turn of the century I first really got stuck into what the agenda was. I came across the Rockefeller Plan and all this sort of thing. And it was all there in plain sight, what they intended doing. So the way it was explained, and I probably won't do as good a job as what I heard, the way that it was explained is that you have to state your intention. And so in plain sight, for the last few decades, actually, we've been given the information for the plan, the agenda. And most of us have been totally oblivious to it or have not known how to counteract that. Because we have not gone against that plan through our intentions, it's been able to proceed the way that it's gone. You know, so you can see what I'm saying?
Is that because they've given us this plan, they've showed us this plan through the movies and through the media and through books, and it's kind of come in through the back door masked as entertainment and that sort of thing, so we haven't paid attention to it?
Well, a lot of people haven't paid attention to it. I've read a lot of source material, but most people wouldn't do that. Okay, so there's been absolutely nothing coming from us to say, no, 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 we've got to put a stop to it. So I've been for, a number of years doing a lot of energy work on the earth, and I've always been saying for the highest good, for the highest good. And in recent times, this year in particular, I've been working very closely with a friend overseas. We FaceTime each week. And we both work with our extraterrestrial teams, our ET brothers and sisters, because there are some of them in some of the intergalactic species that have helped us, despite the fact that the Galactic Federation of the Worlds decided that they would always step back and allow us to sort things out ourselves. I believe that there is about five different species that have come in to help us because they are not part of that intergalactic federation. So this friend and I have gotten together and we call in our teams. We say, what needs doing? Where can we help? How can we push back? So I got her permission to share this with the wider audience, because it's time for everybody to start, I think, speaking up, pushing back. And what I'm going to share, please feel free to use it yourself or modify it in your own way. The first thing that we worked on, because we did a lot of basic stuff, and finally I said, no, we need to be very, very specific, and we need to target areas. So we decided we were going to target the geoengineering, the spraying of the skies. And we looked at it. And a lot of people, myself included, in the past have just put out for it to be transmuted, and it's been done. And this time when we looked at it, what we saw was that the heavy toxins, the heavy metal toxins. We also saw computers, artificial intelligence, and one person behind it all. And I'm sure you can guess who it was. BG.
BG, right.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so this is what we did. And when we do this, we call in our teams, and whether or not you feel the energy of the higher presence is irrelevant, but we do. And we go into a really meditative, relaxed state, and the words just flow. So what we were able to do was to neutralize the toxins globally. As well as that, using 2 different types of energy work, we were able to change the algorithms on the computers and on the artificial intelligence, and also nullify the impact of that one particular person.
Goosebumps, Benty.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Since then, I've had feedback from a number of people I know who live not necessarily in this area, but elsewhere. And they're commenting on the fact that they can no longer smell the chemicals. The cloud shapes are changing. The aerial spraying is continuing. The aerial spraying is continuing. But now instead, in what we asked for it to be done for the highest good of the planet. And we didn't expect it to be done, but we asked if it is for the highest good of the planet. In other words, we are just putting out our counter command to the source, to God, to creator source, whatever you want to call it. And we're saying we need to protect this planet. So at this point in time, I would say the DS has no idea that this has happened because they're still spraying. Since then, we've done a lot of work on the oceans, particularly the Pacific Ocean with Fukushima. We've asked for all of the toxins and chemicals and stuff in the waterways and the oceans to be neutralized for the highest good of the planet. And there are no witches' spells or any such thing. We just do this in a meditative state. And we feel it's vitally important for as many people as possible to also put out a similar intention. They can figure out what they need to do. We're going to look at 5G next week. And the wording will be to transmute the frequency of the damaging electromagnetic waves of the 5G energy into harmonious frequency waves that support the triggering of junk DNA in order to facilitate the awakening within those souls that are ready for it. So again, for the highest good. When I put out something for myself, I always say, if it is for my highest good. That's how I manifest, if it is for my highest good. In other words, I just put it out there and then I forget about it. The reason I'm sharing this, there's a lot of things, we've done a lot of things. We've ensured that there's been a lot of nutrients put into all the rainforests around the world, for example. Okay. We've worked on HARP, CERN, I don't know, there's so many things that we've worked on. And every little thing that we do is just a small part of what can be done. The thing is, the more we get people to work on the planet with the intention of healing the planet, but also manifesting that love within, the quicker we are going to see the shifts.
Benty, how do you know when, like with the aerial spraying and whatnot, how do you know when your intention has taken effect?
Look, because I'm so sensitive, I smell it when they do it. I can smell it, my body goes into a reaction. But I can also see it and I just know it. But a lot of people would not have that sensitivity. And the way that I know people work is that, they'll go to, say, church and they'll believe in God and Jesus, but how do they know it's there? In much the same way as you send off emails, you don't know that they're going to reach their destination. You just know it's there. And part of the process, as I said to you at the very beginning, is releasing those fears that come in that actually become the little monkey voice within, and that drives the ego. And it's vitally important for all of us to be in that space, more and more of us anyway, because, you know, the changes are happening. I'm
And
not
that's why the
disputing that.
DS don't want us to know how powerful we are, because most people would think, oh, who am I? As if my intention could change anything. They don't want us to know how powerful we are, because if every single person on the planet had these kind of intentions for the evolution, the well-being and the healing of the planet, the DS would cease to exist.
Just like that, really quickly. And what my concern is at the moment is a lot of people who have that awake consciousness are looking for information on videos and links to see who, you know, who's done what's happening, when will everybody be awakened, what's happened with the elections in the States. And I've got a 10-year-old grandson who's absolutely fixated on the US and the election results. There is this fixation on stuff over which we have little or no control. So I'm sharing what I know so that people can sort of go, oh, I can control some things. I can put out a good intention. I can put out a good vibe, and I can relax, because then I won't be thinking about what other people are saying. And I won't be disappointed when I'm told certain things will happen by a certain date and they don't happen. You know, it's really important, and I can't stress this enough, because I'm just one of many people, but I do get a lot of information and I get a lot of messages. This is now the time for us to live in the moment, to be in that state of, wow, life is beautiful. You know, we all have crap days. We all have crap moods, and things come up. And that's another thing that's happening, because we just had those 2 full moons. The Schumann resonance is off the chart. I did talk to my team about putting in some high frequency energies, you know, like tsunami like waves. I said, can we have some more of those? Because they do accelerate the awakening process, but by the same token, they bring up all the shite and all the fear and all the pain that people have within them. Oh, yeah. And there was one more thing that I did ask about, and I got a big no on, which I found very interesting. And that was about neutralizing this thing. And I got a big no.
Right.
Can you figure out why?
Well, I've heard that it's a no, and you hear people, and it's, you know, there's going to be a neutralization thing, but is there? Because once you affect once you start mucking about with your DNA, once you change it, yeah,
it makes it more difficult. There's no doubt about it. There are a lot of souls that have chosen to not be here for the complete changeover. And this,
That's not me.
Yeah, me neither. But this jab is an opportunity for that process to occur. And so there need be no judgment or criticism of it. You know what I mean?
oh yeah, yeah. How does somebody, because like we've talked about, that so many people are in so much fear about, and now all of this shedding stuff and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
How does somebody who's really in that space of fear, how do they begin to step out of it if they're not sort of, if they're hearing this for the first time sort of thing? How do they begin?
My answer, which works for me, is to be in nature, to go into nature, to meditate, to listen to water running down a stream or whatever it may be. And of course, obviously, don't watch TV, don't read newspapers, be with people that lift your spirits up. You know, but I do know that a lot of people are very addicted to watching TV and watching news, mainstream media. And, you know, simply and all the research shows this, that should you decide to not switch the television on for a week, there are actually changes within your body. You know, your blood pressure goes down, the activity in your mind calms down, all of that sort of thing. But an individual has to make that choice.
You know,
as
Bensi,
will-
when I travel overseas with my husband and we go to Indonesia, I mean, we haven't in the last 12 months, obviously, because of COVID, but every year we would go away and live on an island for 2 months, and I wouldn't take my phone and I would just be present with what is. And I admit the first 2 weeks was always very, very hard. I would hear a phone ring and I'd be like, is that my phone? I'd be, oh, no, I don't have a phone. Oh, no, I don't have a phone. And after 2 weeks, I would feel my nervous system unravel as I was present with my life. And then after 2 months, I would come back to Australia, and it was such a paradox. You know, I would be at the traffic light and it's literally just gone green for like a millisecond, and the person behind me is like, and I'm like, hang on a minute, the light's just gone green. Everyone on their phones. And I would just be looking at these people thinking, oh my God, they're all robots. Look at them all.
Yes.
And I tell myself every time, I'm not getting back into that. But slowly and surely, I fall back into it myself. So I'm not judging anyone, right? It happens. I fall back into it myself. And then every year I go away and it happens again. And each and every time I would come back, it would be harder and harder to assimilate back into this robotic world where we're like living in this virtual reality that's in the palm of our hand. It's not even real. It's like we're watching a little movie here. Life is here, and we're stuck in this virtual world. It's a surreal experience to be isolating ourselves in amongst humanity.
You've described it beautifully, Bella. You've absolutely nailed it. And because of the fact that I'm quite a bit older than most people, I'm of that very senior generation nowadays,
Please.
I've really noticed the shifts. I've seen the shifts. I've seen the damage that it's doing to people's health, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And I've, of course, seen all the lifestyle changes that go with it when you sit there day in, day out, looking at a screen, whether it's for work or, you know, on your phone or whatever else, when you're doing it constantly, you know, there is a damaging impact on your health, including your eyesight. Your vision is impacted because you're doing that close screen, you know, viewing all the time. You're not exercising your ocular muscles. So this is where we've been heading. And, you know, you've just described the recipe for getting away from it all and, you know, getting a rebalancing and a recheck as to what's important in your life.
You know, the last trip that I went away was in 2019, which was before COVID hit. I was pregnant. I had this overwhelming urge to go to Hawaii. I couldn't explain it. I just had to go. And I decided for the whole 2 weeks that I was there, it was my birthday, I decided not to even take my phone at all. I just really wanted to be present, and I wanted to allow my nervous system to unravel. But this is what's happened in humanity. As I was getting ready to board the plane, they were doing, Hawaiian Airlines were doing additional like testing before you get on the plane. And some people were being like, you know, pulled aside and having their luggage gone through. This was before you got on the plane. And, you know, the guy that was testing, you know, checking through my things, he says, where's your phone? I said, oh, I don't have one. And he looked at me and was like, you don't have one? And I was like, well, I have one, but I decided not to bring it. And he goes, you didn't bring your phone? And I'm like, no, I didn't. And he didn't believe me. And it was this massive thing. And I was so suspicious because I had consciously chosen not to take my phone on holiday. I was a target. I was suspicious. And fortunately for me, on the train on the way down, I had written in my journal that I've chosen not to bring my phone because I want to be present. I had to actually get out my journal and let him read it. And he's like, oh, that's really weird. And he gave me back my journal. It was like so bizarre to them that I wouldn't take my phone for 2 weeks.
I understand. Look, I don't do Western medicine, and I certainly don't do medications. I haven't taken any medications. I avoid the Western medicine because I know how dangerous it is. And, you know, people say to me, but surely you must be taking it, you must have health issues. You must be taking medications. How can that be that you don't? Yeah. And when you have that perspective, you see the world differently, because you start to realize that we've been herded by this DS, this deep state, these evil people. I call them evil. You can call that a judgment if you like, but they're evil. They are absolutely evil, and I'm sure they can justify everything that they're doing because they believe in what they're doing. However, what they're doing is taking away our human rights. And for that reason alone, we've got people who get out there, they're loud, they resist, they fight the good fight, they speak up. But the majority of people are not at the front row of this. But there's a lot of people that I talk to, people who are older than I am. They go, no way, I'm not getting this. No one's getting near me. And there's a lot of people like us who really are keen to help in some way, to support the freedom and the liberation of humanity, because this is what it's come down to now. And I love that we have so much intergalactic support.
Can you can you expand on that a little bit, Benty, if possible, the intergalactic support that's there and what that looks like?
Yeah, look, it's every person who has the experiences their way. So this is just my perception. Because I've always had non-physical contact from the time I was very young, I see this as being normal. The next person might see it as being very abnormal, and that's fine too. In most instances, I'll give you an example of, because they talk to me and I sometimes get massive downloads in a fraction of a second. At one stage, I jokingly said to them, okay, I'm the puppet, you're the puppeteers. And they said, no, we work as a team. We are all equal. So how it works is that overall their support is wisdom, guidance. I've never been told anything evil, never been told to do anything. In actual fact, I used to get annoyed with them because I wouldn't get the information I thought they could give me. And they said, no, you are equal. You have chosen this path. You have chosen this experience to be here. And the word that you used earlier about being empowered, that's been drummed into me, that this time that we're going through is about the re-emergence and evolution of human empowerment. The way that it has been described in a lot of the channeling that I've done is that as we awaken from within, there is a light that comes through. Science has told us, and most of the science that we've been told is wrong, as you are well aware. Science has told us we have 2 strands of DNA, and under the New Age umbrella, which is also a fake thing, that was actually set up by the Freemasons. Under a New Age umbrella, we've been told we can expand that two-strand DNA up to about 24, I think they said, 24 strands. So in some of the deep trance work that I've undertaken, I've got a lot of information about the junk DNA, which science has always defined as being useless. It's not. As we shift more from the head to the heart, we actually trigger the activation of that junk DNA. It's a bit like you've got a Christmas tree and you've got all the lights. When you switch it on, all the lights go on. But in the human anatomy situation, what happens is as you become more and more awake, that DNA lights up one strand or one bit at a time. So you become lit up from within. Now, this is the sort of support that we get individually. There's lots of other things that happen. A lot of star seeds are on the planet, as you're aware, and have come down to the planet for this time to be here and to help the awakening process. So many of us leave our bodies at night and we go astral traveling. We go out and we fight against the deep state and the dark forces. We go out and we get briefings. We have briefings with our soul families as to what we're going to do next. Very often, and I know that a lot of people talk about this tingling sensation that you feel, at night. That literally is where you may be given a frequency download or upgrade. So the download comes in and your personal vibration is upgraded to a higher level. And as it becomes higher and higher, because our brothers and sisters from outer space are helping us, and at the same time we're doing our work, so vibrationally we are shifting.
So Benty, in modern times, in millennial speak, I guess, would that be a software update?
Absolutely. Yep.
I've actually been experiencing that over the last probably 6 months more than ever before, but I didn't know what it was. I only just realized the other day, I thought, this could be like information coming in. This is like, I just didn't know what it was.
Mm-hmm. Well, it has to be subtle and it has to be gradual. And, it's really our own higher self, our own higher awareness that is collaborating to, at a soul level for this to happen. But it's to actually activate that DNA. And in that activation, there's a lot of cellular memory that comes in. And that cellular memory may help us to remember who we are and where we come from. Because so many of us don't come from here. We come from elsewhere. We've chosen to be here. Along with that, there can be cognitive dissonance. There can be a lot of old emotions coming up, but that's just purging of the old. However, the stronger your vibration, the higher your frequency, the more plugged in you become and the more sensitive you are to everything. But at the same time, your own strength comes through. And along with that, more of a sense of your purpose. And, we all have a different purpose. We all have a different understanding of who we are and what we're here for. But each of us is a piece of the puzzle. And each of us has a very important role to play. Now, for some reason, I'm getting the message I need to talk about those who choose to leave their body, to transition to the other side. And this time is a time when there will most likely be a lot of loss of life. And it's all meant to be. It is all meant to be, because so many of the souls will go on and they can do a lot of work on the other side. I've encountered this in my work where, you hear of a person who leaves and the family says, oh, they've left, they're too young, they shouldn't have gone. And then you communicate with that person once they're on the other side and they go, yeah, I need to do work here. I can be a lot more effective this side. So we're actually going to see, quite a lot of loss of life, because we are shifting into a time where instead of having third, fourth, fifth density, we're just literally splitting away. You know that, don't you? We're splitting. So we're shifting. Gaia herself is shifting into a fifth density.
Shifting like this, or is it shifting like this?
It's like we were all together once upon a time. We were all together, it was like a real melting pot. And over the years, I've received this information that there would become evidence of a split happening between those who choose to remain in third density and those who choose to raise their frequency to a higher density.
So Benty, sorry, can I ask you, sorry, you're probably going to explain it, but does that mean that there's going to be one Earth, two different frequencies coexisting at the same time, and the other frequency might not know about each other?
We've got that happening right now.
Right.
So it's like you can't compare apples and oranges, and that's what's happening. And a lot of people who understand the program or the plan or the agenda are doing their best to educate those who are not listening. Seriously, you're wasting your breath. You're wasting your breath. You can be more useful in working on raising your own frequency and helping to heal the planet and support her inner journey, because it comes down to soul choice. So the two densities are side by side at the moment, but there's going to be a split. And very often those choosing to remain mired in the third density, which is soul choice, yeah, they're not going to be here in the long term for this on this planet.
Does that mean they're going to leave their physical bodies, or does it mean that they're going to leave their physical body? When the split happens, they'll leave their physical body.
Yeah, there's been a lot of new age talk about spacecraft coming in and the higher frequencies or density people leaving in spacecraft and going elsewhere. But a lot of it goes down also to dimensions and timelines. It's really gotten very convoluted at the moment because things are not progressing in the linear fashion that we're used to. You know, I had an experience the other day because I've been jumping timelines. And I had an experience the other day. I literally felt as though I was tumbling through a mass of timelines, and I had a hell of a job getting back into my body. And I'm going, what's changed? Oh, it was me. Something inside of me had shifted, and I had tumbled through a lot of timelines and jumped to a new timeline. This is what's happening.
I mean,
and I know I'm not the only
makes
one.
sense to me. That makes sense to me, Benty, but can you, I know there's really not words for quantum reality when you're in the 3D plane. Can you kind of explain quantum reality and what's going to be happening in these new times with these timeline jumps and shifts? Can you sort of explain that?
I don't think we know until we experience it. However, I do know some things that I've learned from experience and also with working with a lot of clients. As you shift in your density to a higher frequency, your body, physical body responds accordingly, just like your emotions change and your perceptions change, okay? So, how can I put this? Let me give you an example. It's one of the common reactions that I've seen, I've gone through myself, but I've seen it with a lot of clients over the years, is that suddenly there are episodes of vertigo. And you're just really, really dizzy and really spaced out. And you sort of think, oh my God, what's wrong? Do I have a brain tumor? Is, something wrong with my middle ear? All that sort of stuff. No, what's happening is that as you shift in your frequency to a higher level, the blood in your body becomes thinner. It thins. You cannot do all of this spiritual work, this inner work, without it affecting you on every level. So your blood ends up thinning, which is really good because it keeps your body youthful and vibrant for a lot longer. And it will also slow down the aging process. It will help rejuvenate all of your body systems and all of your organs. So that's one of the things that you may experience this vertigo and you might get really upset about it. And I recently had a call from a friend and she just couldn't believe how dizzy she felt. And I said, you're fine. It's just vertigo, your blood's thinning. And she thought I was pretty cold-hearted, but I've said this to many people because I understand it. Another thing that may also happen very commonly is you sort of, when you're living in the present moment, your mind isn't the way that it used to be, and often you forget words. It's not a sign of Alzheimer's or any such thing. It's just simply that you are in the present and your mental body is not dominant. It's your heart center that's dominant. Also, another indication may be that you have difficulty remembering things. Your past no longer determines or controls what you do in the present moment. And then you go, well, actually, what happened? I can't remember. That to me is the perfect sign that you've really done a lot of work on yourself. When you get to that point where all of that is behind you, you've jumped timelines. You're no longer on that timeline of the past. You're no longer putting your energy and your focus on things that have happened in the past. They can no longer impact you in the moment. You're living in the moment and you've jumped timelines. So therefore, sure, you've had those experiences, but they no longer keep harping at you. Does it make sense to you at all?
That makes
Absolutely.
a lot of sense to me, because Benty, a lot of this is new to me. In a way, I mean, I've heard the concepts and I've done a bit of work over the years, but a lot of it, the intensity of it and the tangibility of it these days is so much more powerful that it's beginning to make sense. It's like, oh yeah, that's why. And so for me to hear all of this, and for other people to hear that their loved ones who they fear might depart the earth because of they've had the jab and stuff like that, to understand that they're just leaving their physical body, they're actually going on, that's going to help a lot of people. It's going to calm and to soothe a lot of people. And I think that's brilliant.
It really is, because the way that we've been conditioned, we fear death. When in actual fact, I remember John Lennon was asked, do you fear dying? And he said, why should I? He said, I'm in New York. I just liken death to getting out of one taxi and hopping into another one. And that's what it's all about. I had an experience, if I may share this, about 8 years ago. And it was early one morning. I was sitting in my little breakfast nook. The sun was coming through. I was relaxing. And all of a sudden, I felt this massive swirling of energy. It was really strong. It was really powerful. And my head was going like this, and I had no control over it. And I'm thinking, what in the world is going on? I could feel it. I couldn't control it. And then literally it felt like something was yanked out from the back of my head. Took me a drink of water and a few minutes to calm down. And I went, what the hell was that about? And when I get the messages, often I get the information. It's like I can see it and I can understand it. And there are no words around it. Something within me, possibly my higher self, had decided it was time to remove all the subconscious memory sitting in the amygdala. The amygdala is the reptilian brain. It's where we have all of our fears. And it removed all of that programming, all of that memory relating to religious indoctrination, religious training, anything and everything to do with religion. And I'm going, oh, okay, well, how's it going to make a difference? After that, I never had any regrets about things. I had no shame. I had no embarrassment. I felt free to be myself. There wasn't that tiny little voice that would come up and say, oh, you can't do that. Or you mustn't do that. That's evil. Or that's naughty. Or that's a sin. You know, that subtle programming that we get. And I went, okay, so this is removed, but why? And then I basically was told it's a control mechanism and it has been used to enslave humanity through the generations.
Wow.
So maybe that's a little bit way out there, but if any of the listeners
Well, not really, Benty, because if we touch on, the amygdala and how it is the reptilian part of the brain and it fires up. So if you think that part of the brain, when we were cavemen living in, forests and whatever, it was literally the fight or flight response. Okay, so you're hunting, you're faced by a tiger, and it was like, oh my God, do I stay and fight or do I flight? Do I run? Okay, that part of the brain would fire up to save your life. However, that part of the brain now fires up all of the time, over and over and over and over and over and over again. And that's why so many people are living in fear and
Yeah.
anxiety, because that part of the brain is just on fire. So for that part of the brain to be, you know, no longer controlling you, what a sense of freedom you must feel. I cannot comprehend what it must feel like for you. And, you know,
Yeah,
everyone
no.
could have a little bit of that, I think.
Well, you know, simply by saying, I release with love my conscious and subconscious fears, whatever needs to be released for my highest good. To get back to that phrase, for my highest good, because in most instances, it's impossible for everything to be released all at once. We would literally implode. And I actually did 2 or 3 years of serious work on releasing, first of all, a lot of conscious fears. And I followed a book that I've used it religiously. I use that word deliberately. I use this book as a great resource because I started off knowing I had a fear of heights. And I ended up finding out that I had a lot of subconscious fears. So over the years, different fears would surface. One of them was to do with people in uniform, soldiers, police, all that sort of thing. Now I couldn't care less. I have no fear of them. So for me, that religious indoctrination and fear was the final thing that needed to go. But I had done a lot of inner work prior to that. And it's really pivotal and important for us to do the inner work. Because if we don't, it's always going to be there like a virus in a computer. It will always come up when we least expect it. And it will show up as an anxiety or irrational response to something. And, you know, how can we be all powerful and remember who we really are, because we are very powerful. How can we be all powerful if we've got these viruses, to go back to your technology comparison, you know, we've got these viruses that just sit there and sit there and sit there and they don't go away. They're like parasites. Yeah. So it's an interesting time we're living.
It's it's extraordinary time. Everything is, like you say, everything is right here, right now, like it's never been before for humanity, right here, right. I imagine that most people who are listening to this have been on a bit of a journey of awakening over a period of time. Otherwise, they probably couldn't even sit and listen to this conversation. So, but there'll be, of course, people are at different stages of awareness of all of that. For people who are at the beginning of the journey, and you know, there is no end to the journey, so there is no end to it. But for people who are just sort of beginning to wake up and understand it, again, and I suppose you're going to give me the same answer again, get out into nature, but where do they start? Where do they, you know, what was that book for you? Or do people have to feel their own way?
It's a different journey for every person. Yet once you make up your mind to do it, as you well know, the right people, the right opportunities, the right books, they all turn up.
Yeah.
And that is you know, it's you magnetize it, you attract it, because you place the intention out into this formless ether, which sits through everything and through which is the creator source. So we are all creators. We are all part of the all-seeing, all-knowing. And it's not outside of us, it's within us. And this is, you know, it's about us rediscovering that which is in us. And doing so as a student, and at the same time owning our mastership, because we are also masters. However, we have to go through this process of starting off as a student in order to reclaim that mastership. And even when you reclaim the mastership, you realise how little you know. The more you know, you realise how little you know, because the learning continues. Now, I do remember being very strongly influenced by the thought of reincarnation. It doesn't exist. But for a long while there, that was the way that I learnt and understood reality. Whereas now we have multiple realities existing simultaneously. And so, you know, as we do our healing and our growth in this lifetime, we impact every other reality in which we exist.
Okay, I want to ask you a question on this, because getting my head around this is something that, okay, so let's say that, you know, time doesn't exist in every life, or every reality that we are having is happening simultaneously at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Why is it this reality I'm consciously experiencing right now and not the other realities?
Because your focus is in that one, but the other ones can bleed in. Because as you become more consciously aware, it's like you see into the other realities as well. And they can also become very real to you. But if you're in another reality, you are experiencing that as consciously as you are experiencing this one. These are all
Get my head
aspects.
around that.
These are all aspects or fractals of the soul.
So when you say reincarnation doesn't exist, that's because time doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And all realities are happening at the same time.
At the same time. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna have to let that one sit for a little while.
Benty, I'd like to share an experience that I've shared with Jane before, but this is like an example of that, sort of. So I watched a documentary on quantum physics and quantum reality, and that, you know, time isn't linear, and how we have the ability to project our consciousness to other places and whatever. So I thought, I'm going to try that in this current reality. And I had an experience when I was 16 where I took acid this one particular night, you know, as a young girl, and it was a very, very bad acid trip. And, you know, it was a horrible night, and I was away from my parents, and I called my parents, and they had to call some friends to come and get me. It was just this horrible experience. So I chose, because I remembered that night so clearly and so succinctly, I chose to send my consciousness back to that moment. So it was only a couple of months ago. So I was like, okay, I meditated, I sat with it, and I remembered exactly where I was. So I sent my consciousness back to that moment in time. But when I did that, I remembered in that moment that that's what had created the bad acid trip in the first place, was that my 43-year-old self came back to talk to me, to tell me it was all going to be okay and don't worry about it. And I was telling my 16-year-old self about this multi-dimensional reality, and it sent me on this terrible acid trip. So I actually fulfilled what had already happened to me when I was 16, and I lived it right now in this current time. Like, talk about a mind blow, hey?
Well, but that is the nature of reality, and not everybody is ready to embrace that, or even to attempt to understand it. But that is the nature of reality. I have sat back on chairs, for example, and gone through the back. I have time traveled. I have levitated. 2 and a bit weeks ago, during my sleep state, I was on a UFO, and there was a lot of stuff that happened up there, believe you me. And most people will say, no, you're kind of crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. It's only when you begin to see everything as energy and frequency and vibration that you begin to understand these constructs and these concepts. And yet, you and I, even with our experiences, Bella, we're still in kindergarten. We don't know the full scope or the extent to which we have this capacity to actually do a lot more.
So are you aware, Benty, of your parallel lives that are coexisting at this time? Are you aware of any of your others? Have you visited them? Have you been to them?
I actually did a lot of it for a long time. I was even in my sleep state. So I couldn't sleep really well because of it. And I felt as though I was awake 24/7. I'd wake up from my sleep state, my physical body would be wiped. And finally, I said to them one night, I said, look, I can't do this anymore. It's affecting me physically. From here on in, I do not wish to be aware of all the different realities and all the different things that I'm doing. If there is anything that I need to become aware of afterwards, I am sure you will bring it to, it will come into my surface, the surface of my consciousness. But right now I need my sleep, and I need to focus my reality here on this planet, because that is why I've come into this body. And it's been really good since then. I've had lots of experiences. However, it's not been multiple experiences simultaneously. Yeah.
Jane's head is spinning.
It is. I'm just trying to think, like, if we have all these different timelines playing out at the same time, but we're choosing to be here right now, is that because here right now is where the action is at? This is the point of change. Is this the most important point that we can see in all our possibilities? I mean, who knows, right?
No, what you're doing is you're basically saying that your ego understanding is looking for an explanation or a definition for being here. Whereas this fractal aspect of your soul is here having this experience because it chooses to do so. But simultaneously, you could be in multiple other realities, and you are.
All right. So now, it doesn't matter then. It really doesn't matter, does it? No. Okay.
Don't ask the question. Look, I
Benji, I like playing with my reality sometimes. Is people. I'm going to share this because I think it's funny, but like I'm married. I've been with my husband for a long time, and if things are feeling a bit stale, I'm like, I'm going to go to sleep, and I'm like, I'm going to meet someone fabulous in Rome tonight, and I can literally like decide to go to Rome, meet a like wonderful man, have this romantic interlude, and wake up in the morning and feel like it was as real as anything.
Absolutely. And that is out of body experiences, because the body it's an entity, but it constrains the soul, and the soul is free. Now, when I had the energy of Edgar Cayce, the soul that embodied as Edgar Cayce, was sitting in the back of my back in the Kundalini for a number of years. During the deep trance channeling, he actually reassured everybody, yes, I am here, but I am also in other multiple realities at the same time. This is something that I am able to do, just as you are able to do. But I don't think that message really sunk into people at the time, because that was pretty way out there then. But I understand it now, that all of these little aspects or fractals of our soul all come together at some stage.
Can I ask you something? So is it possible when I'm dreaming and say, okay, I want to go to Italy, and is it possible that I'm going to another fractal of myself and experiencing what's actually real? Is that possible?
That's very possible. That's very, very possible. And that experience then enhances your experiences in this existence and this reality in this time. Can you see? Because it puts a smile on your face.
Oh, so look, it's fun. It's playful. I also go and have, because I can't eat gluten and wheat and yeast and whatever in this life, I also go and have big food festivals. I go and eat all these pies and pastries, and, and I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, that was so good.
See, you actually understand all of this, Bella, on some level. You actually are able to manipulate time, space, possibly to a greater extent than you are so far.
We'll see. We'll see. And imagine if we have the ability to know that we can bend time and space, and everyone in this reality had that ability. Yeah. Again, the DS would not exist, because we could literally all just bend them right out of here.
We do. However, the thing about being able to do all of this is getting out of the ego mind and going into the heart, because the frequency there in the heart far exceeds the frequency of the mind. And as you go into the heart, your perceptions around yourself and your reality change significantly. And again, I'll use that word, they enhance your ability to live life. Because when you are in your mind all the time, we have been so conditioned to judge, to criticize, to belittle, to feel inadequate. All of this, it's all through the mind. Whereas the heart knows the purity and the power that exists and resides within each of us. So in order to be able to do all these wonderful things that you do so automatically, what does it tell me about where your heart center is, where you are coming from?
I don't know, play, joy, I'm not sure. My
It's
ego.
here. It's here in this huge electromagnetic field.
So how do we bring this? Sorry, go on, Benty.
No, go on. I'm listening.
I was just going to say, how do we bring this now into our now reality on this planet at this time, and as to help us move forward? How do we use that as a practical tool? I mean,
Look, you've got to take the small steps before you can go to the bigger steps. Okay, you've got to take the small steps. Work on forgiving yourself. Work on letting go of things that no longer serve you well. Focus on the things that you feel intuitively are for your highest good. And not everybody is going to be as adept at doing it, because we're all souls. We are continually evolving. And as you said, Jane, there's no ending to it. So maybe in this lifetime, the progress can be from point A to point M. For somebody else, that can go all the way through to the very end and not have to come back. It all depends upon the level of consciousness that resides deep within you at the soul level. And this is why it's very difficult for some people to understand the dangers of the jab, for example, and who are very happy to live in that false reality that's been created for us, because that's all they need to do. But in another lifetime, simultaneously, they may be a highly evolved soul.
So what does that mean if in one reality they're getting the jab and in another they're highly evolved? So what does that do to the, the soul on
It's
jab?
a whole experience. It's the whole experience.
Right.
It's the whole experience.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's the whole experience. So, you're never going to get rid of the dark, because you need the light to balance it. For the first time in a couple of thousand years at least, if not longer, there is a greater balance right across in the multiverse between light and dark. In my many out-of-body, other reality experiences, I've been up there in the wars, in the fierce wars. I've seen them. I know what they do. I've been in a lot of spacecraft. I've really been involved in a lot of council briefings on that level. Now, that makes me sound like a bit of a fruitcake, but I'm not. I'm actually very practical and very logical and down to earth. I don't subscribe to a lot of the fluffy stuff. And I need to know that what I get caught up in has validity and a reality on some level for myself. But I don't normally share it with people because people think I'm a bit far out. But I can assure you that there are people like you, Bella, who have these experiences and don't understand them. In my many years of working with clients, I've heard countless stories of people's weird experiences. These to me are more normal, but some people experience more of a range or more extreme experiences than others. And, all I can say to anybody is just live at your own pace. Trust your gut instinct and go what feels right for you. Go with that. Don't emulate somebody else. Because then you're stopping.
Where's your favorite place in the whole universe?
In the void. I call it the void.
Deep. That's deep, Benty. That's very deep.
Oh, once you've been up there, you know there's nothing quite like it. Yeah.
Mm.
There is something so, it's not even spiritual, it goes beyond that, to be in that. And I've had that privilege not too many times, less than 5 times. Yeah.
Right. Do we, as the closest perception I can get to understand that is, and I keep coming back to these moments where you see a flower and you become the yellow flower for a second like that. Is that
Yeah.
like the void? And it's like that feeling of just a glimmer of, I mean, is that kind of what, where you forget
but-
everything and everything becomes that yellow?
Yeah. But yes, but the void is much deeper than that. Much deeper. And there are no words for it.
Okay. Yeah. No words.
There are no
No.
words. Yeah.
Mm.
So, wow, I hope I haven't frightened too many of your listeners. And I hope
I
I've
don't
given them
worry,
some
Benty.
food for thought.
We're all if they're watching
That's
it,
their bloody
if
problem.
they're watching this and they've watched this far, then they're, you know, as equally down this path as we are of
Yeah, well,
exploration-y conversation.
Well, I've taken a lot of people out of their comfort zone, I'm sure. The bottom line to remember for all of us now is to remember everything we do for the highest good. For the highest good of yourself, for your family, for your friends, for your country, for the planet. Put out for the highest good, because that's like petitioning the almighty oneness that is. You are letting that beautiful divine energy that's within all of us, but you're putting out your intention. And the more that people put out that intention, the more effective the changes are going to be. Yeah.
That's the message for today. Thank you, Benty.
Well, thank you. And I apologize if I've prattled on, but I got told I had
Literally,
to talk.
I could spend 4 weeks picking your brain on, you know, quantum consciousness, and I'll have to have a read of your book, and really, Jane gave me a copy of your book, so I'd love to have a read and really have a cup of tea and get right into it.
What's
Yeah,
taking
a
you
lot of
so
it's very
long?
basic. If you understand it, it's basic.
I have a 1-year-old son. That's what's taking so long.
Lucky you. Well, my beautiful friends, it's been lovely connecting with you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, Benty, for sharing your insights and your wisdom. You are, you know, a wonderful gift for humanity and for all of those on the echo chamber. Thank you.
Put your book up again, Benty, to show the people. Just put your book up again. Pop your book up again, Benty. Yep.
There's that one.
Grab a hold of this book, guys. You'll find it on the internet.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's been around for about a year or so. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you,
Stay
Benty.
well and remain positive.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now.
We'll see you again.
Bye.
Bye-bye.